I'm Lois Acton from Urban Unlimited. I'm slightly different from everybody else in that my friends put my presentation together and I have no idea how it works, so it's going to be interesting. Can I just say that the main principle I'm going to be talking about is ownership of public space, because most public spaces in urban environments are actually, it's a question of ownership, and one of the things that I've worked on most of my life is a whole side of campaigning. And obviously if you're campaigning, all the arts come into play, not just street art or graffiti, but music, dance, theatre, and I come from a sort of very wide background, including fashion, as a way of demonstrating protest. So the first thing we're going to look at is a very short film.
Joe and Crystal have just moved to London. Every day they walk under the bridge to get to school. Every time Joe and Crystal hate how dirty it is.
What are you doing?
Look at this rubbish. I think we should do something about it.
Joe and Crystal talked all day long thinking about how they would change the bridge.
That evening, Joe and Crystal bring paint and start painting.
There is no point in painting this bridge because it's my home.
Sorry, just want to help.
But this is still my home, so go away. Go away. We only want to make it better.
So Joe and Crystal decide to go home very disappointed.
The next morning, whilst the old man is sleeping, they're back and ready for action.
Come on, let's do this.
Yes, I'm ready, brother. Wow! What's all this? I can't believe my eyes. Look at all these bright colours.
Joe, Crystal and the old man celebrate by having a street party.
Together, 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 everyone. Together, together, come on, let's have some fun. Together, we're there for each other every time. Together, together, come on, let's do this right.
I'm hungry!
Be quiet.
Mummy, look how cute they are.
I told you not to go there.
She looked tasty.
These girls are sweet.
The trolls have eaten a child again. They've eaten a child again. Ah! Help, help! They've eaten a child again.
When's dessert?
Kill the trolls, get them out. Kill the trolls, get them out. Kill the trolls, get them out.
But I'm still hungry.
Kill the trolls, get them out.
Excuse
Kill
me.
the trolls,
There you
get
go,
them
troll.
out.
Is that nice?
Yum 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 yum. More, more, more. More, more, more. More, more, more.
There you go.
Yum 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 yum.
Yum, 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 yum.
More, more, more. More, more, more.
Oh, it's empty. There's no more.
That was way better than human.
I wanted some of that.
Well, what about getting some for dinner?
We are now chicken-awarians.
happened? How did you fall?
It's all this rubbish that made me trip over. We got to do something about it.
Look at it. There's so much of it. What are we going to do?
Yes, what should we do?
Ta-ta!
What's that?
Who are you?
I'm Mr. Modernizer. I've come to help you. This rubbish is making me sick.
How can we help?
Mr. Modernizer told them to call for help to regenerate the bridge.
La-di-da-di-da. Ooh, what's that?
Regeneration, Mummy.
What's in the news today? Help regenerate the bridge? Yeah, I want to do that.
They all gather round and start cleaning up the rubbish.
Look at all this rubbish.
It's going well. Look how many rubbish we picked up in the past hours.
Let's celebrate the new bridge.
Celebration time.
Thanks, everyone.
Ta-ta!
Celebration time. Come on. Come on. Celebration time. Come on. Celebration time. Come on.
The next day.
I've got to do something to stop this happening again.
Neighbours offered to help sort the situation.
Save our kids. Save our kids.
Help close the bridge.
Sign my petition.
Help close the bridge.
Mr. Councillor, thank you for coming.
Hello everyone, what's going on here?
We want to stop the traffic because too many children are getting run over underneath the bridge.
We are not going to close down the bridge. But Emily did not give up.
Call in all people who love children. Don't let your children get hurt. Save them!
Okay, you've won the battle.
Hooray!
Well done.
Meow! Meow, 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 meow.
Thank you, Emily, for closing our bridge.
It's a lot better now that there are no cars underneath the bridge. Meow.
Together, 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 everyone. Together, together, come on, let's have some fun. Together, we're there for each other every time. Together, together, come on, let's do this right.
It's very, very different from what you'd probably be expecting. It's by children, and something that hasn't come up here is partly how children see their environment. And we did a series of very short films using plasticine models, and I wanted to show you how children actually view their environment, how they see it, and how they actually want to change it. Because one of the things that came up yesterday a lot was that the environment is there, people can use it, but when you see it through the eyes of a child, they actually think that they can do things, and they don't have the parameters that we're all putting in our heads, that we're not allowed to do it. So going on to what you can see now, some time ago, I was involved with a major campaign in Docklands about the ownership of land in Docklands. And graffiti became a focal part of that campaign because it actually showed what the people of Docklands felt. And many of you will not know about this, but many years ago, the docks were going to be developed without any consultation with local people. And just referring back to the last speaker, he was saying about engagement with local people, about people coming into an area. And the people of Docklands, whatever age they were, whether they were 5 or 95, actually decided that they would take public spaces and art and graffiti into their own hands. This is just a tiny little sample. We have this, I just want to point out that everything I'm talking about, I will give Central St Martin's and UCL all the websites, because there is a huge history in London and in most countries of protest and graffiti. So the not-for-profit was, and people before profit, was something that was put throughout the whole of central London. It went from one area to the other. Flags were taken down that sort of broadcast corporate responsibility, and in their place, Democracy for Docklands flags went up. So the graffiti included the Democracy for Docklands dragon, which was in the shape of the River Thames. So that everybody who knows the shape of the River Thames, we converted it into a dragon. And then we also commissioned the biggest flag for the biggest flagpole in London, which is actually on the South Bank. And we hoisted a flag there. So we reiterated the not-for-profit, people before profit slogan. And I'll just show you that this comes from the back of a record, because as well as being involved around the campaigns around the graffiti side, people came on board and the Tough Cookies recorded music saying "Give us back our land," which is incredibly relevant today. So I think we may be re-releasing it, but it was on MTV when we did it the first time. And one of the interesting things that came out of this was about ownership. Because the one thing that happens all the time is that people come in, writers come in, people come in from different backgrounds, but it's really about collaboration. You may be a train rider, you may be a writer who wants to express themselves, but also, virtually all the writers I've ever worked with and ever met, also, they're very, very genuinely wanting to have some sort of change. It's why you go out in the first place. You know, I think corporate ownership of all our public spaces is becoming more and more intense as we go on. I mean, I went for a walk with a very famous architect around London, just looking at studs on the ground. Now, most people know about the studs situation with skateboarders, but every building in London, if you walk round, you will see there are little studs on the pavement, and that actually denotes the ownership of that piece of land, or that building. You'll go out of here, every new building in London, and more space is being taken away from us, and it belongs to them. Now, you may be working for a corporate company, but nevertheless, as an ordinary member of the community, we're left with very little that we can use or do. And in Docklands, that was one of the key issues. So, moving on. Now, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the results of the Docklands before I move on to Stanwell. One of the most exciting things that I've ever done is gone out with a bunch of pensioners to do their own graffiti. They actually felt we should go out at about 11 o'clock or midnight, and I wanted to move it away because I wanted to show you the children's work, because it's not a male thing, it's not a female thing, it's about all of us. And we all went out together to actually graffiti in railway arches. But the thing they most wanted to do was show people in the local environment what caused them a problem. So they had pink spray, we had pink spray cans, and we went out to actually show what were problems with pavements, what were problems with areas of curbs, and we did the whole of a borough actually going out at night, just showing and making visible what the issues were. I mean, because as long as we stay invisible, then other people are taking decisions. They're making decisions about our lives that means that we have no control over of them. I know other people are talking about their own personal work. I wanted to bring you now to the Stanwell project, which was an extraordinary piece of work. Basically, the community were being faced with the loss of their homes. So they were living in metal houses that were built by Polish workers during the Second World War, just near Heathrow Airport, and they were going to be demolished. And a lot of people have been born in those houses. They were supposed to be put up as post-war houses for 10, 15 years. So 50 years later, people were still living in them, and they were their homes, they were their private spaces. But they were going to be given better homes. But when you're faced with moving from your own home, you don't want to actually leave it. So it was agreed that we would go as a whole group of people, working with the local people, and we did a Christmas card, which was a graffiti piece. And the whole village came out to actually take part in it, from 3-year-olds learning to use spray cans. And it was really about interacting around a piece of art, something that the community wanted to put up. So every day people would come with a story, and a Christmas card was made. And from that, the local housing association decided to put 80,000 aside for a whole piece of work to go on hoardings, not around where the original homes were coming down, but that would be painted. And the artists that took part, and I'm really sorry that we haven't got lots of British writers here, because the work that I've done over the years has involved lots and lots of different groups of writers. But Prime, Mode 2 came in from Berlin to work with us, Solo and Mr. Dane. So if you want to look up their work, I will put a link, because they're all doing extraordinary things. Some of it is political, some of it is, well, I think it's all political, let's put it like that. And some of them have got projects now. Boyd is doing Brixton 6, which recently was with Africa Bambata's work in New York. So they linked up with Kenya and Brixton, doing pieces of work both in all 3 countries. And he's working around recycling as well. But with the Stonewall project, it was decided to work intergenerationally with primary school kids. And in fact, we ended up by working with 11 different groups in the village. And it was about their ownership. It was about their space that was changing. It was about ownership, but also collaborating together. So it wasn't about people coming in and, imposing what they were doing on the area. It was about working together to see what would come out of it as their art, their work. And what came out of it was the most extraordinary history of the village, from when it was first founded, and then based on local stories. But involved in it was, we filmed everything. So there was a blog. Every type of person that was involved, we had travellers involved. And there was an issue. They'd already, I don't know whether you all know about when the police zone areas and tell people they can't go into them, or they're not allowed there after a certain time. The travellers were very used to doing what was their traditional behaviour, and was fine with a lot of people, but not with the police, which was actually having races with their ponies and their traps up and down the main high street. So the travellers became involved with the project. We went out and did motorbike riding, but also they and other young people had no feeling of ownership in their area. So they were tagging everywhere. Because tagging, as far as I'm concerned, I think yesterday I wanted to say to everybody, please tweet never too old to tag, because I think that it's quite an important thing. I know it's one of the disputed areas in graffiti work, but with the taggers, obviously the police and the local people, there was all this friction around tagging. So our writers went out to get to know the taggers. Obviously, everybody can read their tags, and there was a very big collaboration built up between the young people, and quite, understandably, they felt their whole area was being destroyed. They didn't have ownership. So that was one of the first things. But we also work with people with special needs, and with that, I just want to tell you, if you look on the website and the blog, you will be able to see some of the most extraordinary things that happened. With that group, we gave everybody a remote-controlled car that we greyed out, and they pimped their rides. So everybody did a different design, And then the local vicar agreed to a remote-controlled race around the church. And all of those things have gone into this huge mural. So we've got the children, and then there was intergenerational work with the 90 and 80-year-olds who went into the local schools, and there was, you know, questions like, so what did you watch on television? And they all went, well, we didn't have television. So there was a lot of things like that, things about the pig factory. So that is all in the mural. And the best bit I would just want to tell you about, with the car race, all the cars that were in it were actually into the mural. And we got a call about 2 weeks after it had all been finished to say that the mural had been tagged. So it was like, oh my gosh, we got to go down, you know, we thought we'd sort of done all these things. And in fact, the taggers had actually tagged the number plates of all the cars. So each little number plate had a little tag on it. So it was actually ownership. So they had their ownership. There was no tagging in the village. It was all like that. So one of the things I just want to show you, you can come and have a look at it afterwards, but we produced a book and a film and a blog and for 11 different projects. But the book and the film was given back to the village. So the mural is in here, it's a pull-out, you can see the whole of it. Mode 2 came in for days, everybody really got to know each other. But the important thing about the book is that with the film, it brought back in, and to this day it's still being sold by the village, so it brought back in some 15 to 20,000 for them to use on what they wanted to use. And the return that came back from just doing that project, from the investment, for all these people before they moved into their new homes, I mean, we filmed the dereliction, we filmed people's reactions to that, is brought in an extra 250,000 of additional funding for various projects and youth work. So that's just that very quickly. And then, have I got just 5 more minutes? Don't know what we're going on to. This is Loughborough Junction. This is a more recent project. This is actually a Polish writer's work. She came over to work at Loughborough Junction near Brixton, and that area is actually in the process of doing an enormous project, hopefully grassroots up, and it's something I want to talk about as well, is that I think there's a very fine balance between going into an area and actually understanding about how you work with grassroots, because I personally don't think that it's right for people to go in and impose their artworks or their views or whatever without it being in collaboration with people. I mean, it's a controversial thing because, you know, I like to see graffiti. I think the debate we had yesterday was really interesting about, you know, who's looking at it. But I also think that if you are a local person, then it's actually, it's important that there's some engagement and it's not some top-down thing. We have enough top-down. We've got a huge disconnect with politicians in this country, businessmen, media, who all come from one group of people, and the rest of people don't have, as you know, an ownership of place. So Loughborough Junction, these people in this mural are actually local people's faces imposed on a piece of art that comes from 100 years ago. So it's the same painting, but with local people's faces. And there were a few accidents with it. It was supposed to have been actually put up onto the sides of buildings, and it sort of collapsed in the rain. But going on from that, I don't know what I'm pressing, but the film that you would have seen would have been children saying they wanted to change their environment, and they'd done a plasticine film of an animation of what they saw the first bridge looking like. There are 7 bridges at Loughborough Junction, and it has been controversial because every time you say it might be graffiti, people go, no, can't be graffiti, it's got to be street art, it's got to be something else. So the first bridge actually demonstrates quite well that what's happened is that the first things that went up were mosaics done by primary school children, and There is street art in there. It's actually in the roof space, but it's been done very much as a cabinet of curiosities, so that it has sculptures, it has artworks on the walls from schools, from special needs schools, but it also has street art on the ceiling and has completely changed the bridge and the approach. So it also, MA students from Central St Martin's actually worked with local people saying, let's do a different project that you inspire every month. And that has also really been beautifully documented, because they did things with balloons about ownership of space. We did yarn bombing, and I think yarn bombing is an important part of the graffiti side of things. Local council actually said that we had to have permission to yarn bomb, and that we could have it up for 24 hours, and then it would have to come down again. And I think it's one of the most absurd things I've ever heard. So the questions that came up yesterday about legality were really important. And I think just finally I'll just say, I'm sorry that you haven't been able to see the pictures. I mean, I'm hoping that you'll all, I'll make sure that you can see all of these, because some of these projects have been really extraordinary, right going back to the very first thing that I was ever involved with, and this is just to finish with. I was involved with leaving a job many years ago and setting up one of the first free schools, not like the stuff we have in this country today. It was a free school, self-run, organised by local young people. And the first thing they said to me was, oh, you know, you don't know the area, you don't know what you're talking about. And I said, well, show me. And they said, well, it's not our space. And I went, what do you mean it's not your space? They said, well, you know, we're not supposed to be here. We live here, but we don't have any rights or feelings. And it's a very broad group of ordinary young people aged from 5 up to 16, many of them not going into school for very positive reasons, just like many writers and street artists are doing stuff for very positive reasons. And so the first thing that we did was to walk along the River Thames. They went, can we paint our names? And I went, oh, I don't mind, let's paint your names. So along the bank of the Thames, unfortunately, it got obliterated by the corporate stuff that's going on the South Bank, but we fought every single planning application so you can still walk along the South Bank. They wrote their names, but then they wrote the name of the project in the most amazing graffiti writing, the Bermondsey lamppost. And it was right opposite where the Globe Theatre is now. But it was, we went as far as it was their sense of place and ownership. And then we sort of worked from that base upwards to all sorts of things. And some of them are now leaders in their community, very famous. And I want to just counteract briefly that it is not graffiti and street art mixed with all the other cultural things like music, dance, theatre. They are not gateways to crime. It's about self-expression, it's about ownership, and it's about collaboration. And I think that corporate takeover of our outdoor space, whether it's, I was involved with the skateboard campaign on the South Bank, we won that. For those of you who haven't visited it, go down to the Undercroft, underneath the Royal Festival Hall. That's a place that people have occupied, used, written on for 40 plus years. And it belongs to all of us, this city, and it belongs to all of us wherever we're working, whether it's in Africa, South America. I mean, why is it we have the wonderful graffiti in South America? It's a sense of ownership. Thank you.